All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for Wet Seal Plate Panel and Rainscreen Systems 101. We've got Holly Gotfredson and Scott Sampson here from the American Metalcraft team. They're going to be presenting today's AIA-approved course. My name is Bo. I'm here with Acelab. We're helping out with hosting today. I'm going to give a quick little intro about some housekeeping items, as well as how Acelab works with architects. That'll be less than 5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's AIA-approved course. All right, so first thing I want to show you is just everyone today who signed up automatically had a free Acelab account made for them. So if you would like to get in touch with the American Metalcraft team after today's webinar, you can just head to acelabusa.com. Got this handy search bar now right on our newly redesigned homepage. So you can look for brands, products, or resources just by toggling through here. So if you want to look up a manufacturer, just switch over to brands, type in the name of any manufacturer, that'll start to auto-populate. And then you can use that to head over to American Metalcraft's site on Acelab, and you can use this contact button to get in touch with their team directly. So this is a great place to come if you're looking for some additional information, some resources after today's webinar. You can use this to get in touch with American Metalcraft, as well as explore some more information about their products and their company. All right, a few housekeeping things from me. So we did ask for AIA numbers upon registration. I will also send out a form. If anyone forgot to include their AIA number, you can list it for us on the form. And we will also have some time for Q&A. So please submit questions to the Q&A box throughout today's webinar. And then, yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Armand for just a quick little intro about Acelab, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you mind if I just share my screen for a brief moment?
Sure.
All right, this should be very quick. Hi all, I'm Armand. I'm the head of architectural partnerships here with Acelab. For those of you who don't know, I work very directly with architects on a day-to-day basis to help with their material selection. For example, one of the questions I actually got in the past couple of weeks was someone looking to reselect a project from Zahner Metal, and so I was able to give them some great options, such as American Metalcraft, who's on this call today. Through this process, we make recommendations like that by setting up bi-weekly meetings, during which we also help with building your firm library. And so some of the things that you can see that we do here are material research, building that firm library, and then also setting up some workshops for your firm library so you can get ahead of material research before you have to do it on the projects during deadlines. A quick question we got even this week was just, hey, I have an image of a project, don't know what the material is, but really, really like it for this project. What is it? We were able to get the architect an answer within the day, which was fantastic. So we'll drop a quick survey in this if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how we work with architects. It's a completely free program. Please let us know. I'll reach out to you and also drop my link in the chat. But anyway, thanks for letting me talk about this for a little bit. And we'll just move over to the today's webinar as well. Thanks so much, y'all.
Thanks, Armand. All right, now without further ado, Holly, I'd love to pass it over to you to take it away with today's presentation.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for the opportunity to present today. I'm Holly Gotfredson. I'm the president and owner of American Metalcraft, as well as our sister company, Finishing Dynamics. American Metalcraft was started in 1986 by my father-in-law, Gary Gotfredson, who was a structural engineer at the time for H.H. Robertson. When leadership changed, he decided to go out on his own and started a small fabrication shop about an hour outside of Atlanta. Slowly, over the next several years, that fab shop grew and grew, and pretty soon we had projects all over the country. I started with the company kind of in a marketing advertising space. That was kind of my background. Graduated from University of Georgia with an art history degree and worked at the High Museum of Art in Atlanta. Really always loved art and architecture, but didn't know that much about metal fabrication in the architecture world. So after I got married and spent about a decade in marketing and advertising, I started doing more and more for both American Metalcraft and Finishing Dynamics. The more that I learned about the process of what we do, and the more I realized how creative that process was, I really fell in love with the industry and the built environment. So I moved into a full-time position and had a lot of wonderful mentors on the production floor as well as in the front office. And after, several years of leadership and some training by them, I moved to purchase American Metalcraft in 2017 from my family. And in 2021, I purchased our sister company, Finishing Dynamics. So we have two WBE certified companies that offer products across the country. So we are very proud of that. Finishing Dynamics is celebrating its 20th anniversary. American Metalcraft is 2 years away from its 40th anniversary. So we have a wonderfully experienced and talented team here to serve you. And so we look forward to being your go-to resource for all things architectural metal. We are primarily going to be talking about panels, our wet seal system, and our Rainscreens, but wanted to just show you a couple of other products that we also offer and also talk to you about some of the organizations that we're a part of. Many thanks to Acelab for giving us this opportunity to share with you today. We're also part of AIA Atlanta, Construction Specification Institute, Women in Manufacturing, and the National Association of Women in Construction, as well as the Rainscreen Association in North America, and are available in other spec services. So American Metalcraft products are wonderful for lead points. They potentially can add a credit 4.1 or 4.2. We are currently wrapping up our first HPD, so that will hopefully be available very shortly. But we are very sustainably minded. The great thing about aluminum is that a lot of it already has recycled content. 70 to 80% of that sheet metal is recycled content. When solid aluminum plate is fabricated and formed, and those extra pieces that you may not need for that product hit the floor, they actually are going into a recycle bin. So all of that scrap is being recycled and reused. It's back in the supply chain. So we really love that about using solid plate. These are just a couple of examples of some other things that we offer. In addition to Rainscreens and wet seal, we can do perforated panels. As you can see on the left-hand side, we made music notes. This was for William and Mary College. On the right-hand side, this was some perforations and dimpling, custom perforated pattern for a trade school in Chinle, Arizona. In the bottom, you're going to see an example of our custom sunshades. These are vertical fins on an aeronautical training center in South Carolina. So as far as products go, we're talking about Rainscreens, wet seal, custom sunshades, custom and standard perforations, brake metal, column covers, and anything really that doesn't exist. Our team really loves to create things from the architect's vision. So we can do a lot of custom exterior elements, as I think I've got a picture of one coming up. So here you're going to see L'Oreal headquarters in New York in the top left. On the right, you're going to see some industrial looking custom sunshades on a tech building in Charleston. Bottom left, you're going to see perforated panels on a parking garage in Philadelphia. We are seeing a huge trend for architects to want to screen those parking garages. And I love that because you're spending so much time and energy and talent on designing a beautiful building, and then bam, you've got this parking structure next to it. What are you going to do with that concrete? And so the perforated screening is really just a wonderful solution to add beauty to that. You can also see the structural tubing over on the right-hand picture here. We do engineering, fabrication, and finishing, as well as design assist. So please use us as a resource. Talk to us about any project you have coming up where you're thinking about different product solutions. Here on the bottom left, this is one of those custom exterior elements that I mentioned. We had an architect that wanted to crown a hospital and wasn't sure how they were going to do it. So our team all got together, figured out a way to make it constructible and within budget. That's always the key thing. And the bottom left is the end result of that. Some custom sunshades on the right-hand side in California. We've also been at the SeaTac Airport, so you'll see some of our work there in the Delta Sky Club. So please take a look at our website to see more examples of our work. So we'll go ahead and jump into our class today. I also want to introduce my national sales manager, Scott Sampson, who's going to be on the call with us today. He's been in the metal world for over 40 years, is a wealth of information, and so he will be answering any questions you may have while we're going through the webinar. So I'll also ask him to jump in from time to time and give us a little bit more detailed information on some of the slides we're going to cover today. So wet seal panels and rain screen systems. Why do I have a dinosaur and some sunglasses on this slide? Well, let me share that with you. So wet seal systems have always been the tried and true. They were invented right when we really started seeing skyscrapers. And it's a wonderful system, but it's an older system. And the rain screens are kind of the cool kids on the block now. They're a little bit more economical. They don't require welded corners. So we're going to kind of look at the differences between those two systems, you know, and what's going to be the right system for your project. These are a couple of our objectives. I'm not going to read all these to you, but I'm really excited to talk to you today about how to make a zero waste panel. That's one of my favorite things to discuss. Also, you know, talking about what's going to be the best coating that's going to be the right coating for your project. And of course, we'll also talk about market trends, different metal panel systems and components, and the importance of AAMA testing. And you may already be familiar with some of these advantages, but you know, aluminum products are strong and they're lightweight. So if you're thinking about a steel product versus aluminum, you're going to have a lot of that strength, but less weight. They're non-sparking, and solid plate aluminum is non-combustible. We are going to talk today about the differences between an ACM panel versus a solid plate. There's quite a few. We're also going to talk about the differences between coil coat and post-fabrication finished solid plate aluminum. Of course, aluminum has a good strength to weight ratio, as I mentioned, and you can weld and polish over the joints. So you can kind of give the illusion of all those different little pieces of aluminum being one large piece. And we love that. It gives us a lot of creative options as we're thinking about products. So just out of curiosity, and you can answer me in the chat, what do you think some of the differences are between coil and plate? So let's ponder that for a minute. If you're thinking about pre-finished coil, what type of gauges are going to be offered in that? And then thinking about solid aluminum plate, what kind of thicknesses are available and what kind of finishes are available for that? So we do get these questions a lot when we're out in discussions with designers and architects. So I'd like to share some of those differences with you today. So coil coat is not plate. Coil coat typically is going to be a much thinner gauge metal. It's pre-finished and you're relegated to a limited number of colors. Typically, you have to order between 5,000 and 8,000 square feet as a minimum order to get one color. So if you're thinking about, hey, I want to use 5 or 6 different colors on a building, but you don't meet that minimum, it may make it a little bit challenging. So in that instance, you may want to look at solid aluminum plate that is post-fabrication finished. And what that allows is now the color spectrum really opens up. So instead of having, you know, 32 colors to choose from, you literally have thousands of colors to choose from. Now you're talking about micas, metallics, the chameleon, the really beautiful color shift finishes. You can do standard and custom colors. If you want to use 18 colors on a building, you can. Definitely look at your manufacturers and look at who's going to have an in-house paint line. That's really going to help free you up as far as minimums go. You know, when you're thinking about post-fabrication finishing, all of those edges of that product are going to be coated. Think about coil coat. Think about the nature of it. So if you're buying 5,000 square feet of pre-finished sheet, when you shear that and when you fabricate that, you're going to have exposed edges. And those exposed edges may lead to oxidation, right? So if you've got a project where, you know, you're concerned about that, or you really want to make sure all those edges are protected, you want to make sure that it lasts for many, many years to come, post-fabrication finishing is going to be your best bet. The other thing about coil coat is when you're going into those thinner gauges, let's say we're having a conversation with an owner of a project, and we're looking at cost savings, and there's some value engineering type conversations being had. And, maybe somebody that offers panels and coil coat is going to say, hey, man, you're going to save $60,000 by using coil coat. Well, if you're going beyond 1 foot by 1 foot modules, you're kind of running into an area where you might have some pillowing because the gauge is too thin. In order to combat that, they may say, hey, let's use some stiffeners. We'll just add some stiffeners behind it. Well, now that $60,000 savings really isn't a savings at all. So what we recommend is choosing the right gauge from the get-go. Get 080, 090, or above, depending on the engineering calcs, to make sure that those solid plate aluminum panels are beautiful without any type of pillowing for years and years to come. It's a great conversation to have when you're in design, when you're in schematics, so that you're choosing that right material from the get-go and you don't have to worry about things like that. Scott, any additional information you want to jump in with here?
Well, yeah, being the old man of architectural metal panels, plate had always been 1/8 inch, 0.120 or thicker. And some other manufacturers have came around over the last 20 years and have slowly tried to thin that metal down. Really, we don't think plate exists really lower than 080. You get into 063 and less, you have a big chance of oil canning and edge wave and those kind of problems. And as Holly mentioned, the reason these other folks are trying to say that should be considered plate is because they're using coil coating, a more inexpensive way to coat the metal. And you do have a raw edge at every cut, every flange. And if you look at your paint warranty carefully, you'll see all edges must be coated. And, if there is a field cut that occurs in plate, you touch that up. So for your warranty to stay in effect, every single raw edge has to be touched up with an air dry Kynar. So be careful of the lighter gauges.
For sure. Thanks, Scott. So here's another question to ponder. What's the differences between ACM and plate? So ACM is a composite material. You typically have a very thin sheet of metal on either side. It's sometimes referred to as a sandwich panel. And then you have a flame retardant core in the middle of that. Solid aluminum plate is going to be just solid raw aluminum. There's no core. It just is what it is from the mill. And here are some of the differences between those two materials. For example, solid aluminum plate is non-combustible. It does not burn. It has superior strength and there's no concern of delamination. Over on ACM and MCM, it has a fire retardant core and it will withstand flame spread for up to about 30 minutes. The core content is primarily plastic. So you have to think about that when you're thinking about, a circular economy. How is that plastic core going to be recycled? Is it going to be recycled? Currently, there's not that many facilities that will take ACM apart and recycle it. With the advent of aluminum recycling and aluminum just being such a popular material for many different products, there's aluminum recycling all over the country. So it's very easy to find a recycler for that material. Again, you're looking at minimum orders versus no minimum. With ACM or MCM, you may have a minimum order of 5,000 to 8,000 square feet, whereas with solid aluminum plate, there's not going to be that minimum. Now, to be fair, to be the most economical, at least 1,000 square feet is going to help your price. But there is the possibility to do under that. So what's the deal with all these numbers that we're going to talk about today? So 7-Up, 7-Up reminds us that there's no caffeine, ha ha ha. And if you get that reference, you're definitely over 40. 7-Eleven makes us want to buy a slushie and a Slim Jim. Motel 6 reminds me of road trips when gas was like 79 cents and I couldn't afford a slushie or a Slim Jim. Five Guys makes us full just thinking about it. Four Seasons makes us think of a swanky hotel or a guy that sings really high. And Formula One, well, I think that's a race. not really sure. I'm not a car girl, but Forever 21 is definitely what we all need if we know what that guy's name is that sings really high, Frankie Valli. So I definitely am one of those people. But today we are going to be talking about this number, NFPA 285, the big 285 fire rated testing. So one of the things that you definitely need to understand about cladding is choosing the right cladding for your project. We definitely want to look at the differences between flame retardant, flame resistant, and non-combustible. Definitely knowing those terms is a big plus. And understanding that solid aluminum plate is non-combustible. It does not burn. It's NFPA 285 compliant naturally. Other materials like ACM and MCM are going to have to pass a stringent test using NFPA 285. And it's going to have to go through a lot of different tests to make sure that that flame spread will not happen beyond that 30-minute window. So you've got up to 30 minutes to get out of the building if for some reason something bad happens. And I won't read all these to you, but this is just kind of some terminology that you should be familiar with when considering different types of cladding. And, again, I can't stress enough the importance of testing, making sure that whatever product you choose does have that testing, or in the instance of solid aluminum plate, you know that it's non-combustible, it's not going to burn. So again, it's a great point to your owner when you're thinking about cladding and you're thinking about safety of occupants. That's definitely something you want to look at. Plate may be just slightly more expensive, but it's non-combustible and does not burn. And so this is just kind of an example of a burn test we did at our shop. The top left is going to be ACM with the flame retardant core, and on the bottom is going to be solid aluminum plate. We did welding torches for 4 minutes equidistance from both samples, and you can see the difference in the two. So design considerations for panels. All right, I'm going to get really excited about this. I love this part. So here's what I want to let y'all know. When you're thinking about solid aluminum plate or any type of module, you want to think about the standard sheet widths and use them to your advantage. So the three numbers you need to know here are 36 inches, 48 inches, and 60 inches. When you think about a panel, a lot of times, we're thinking about just the panel face. That's what everybody's going to see at the pedestrian level. That's primarily what we're concerned about, aesthetically speaking. But we're typically going to see flanged edge conditions. We're going to see a folded joint, right? So we need to allow 3 inches on either side for those flanges. So think about this. If you create a 30-inch panel face and you allow 3 inches on either side, boom, you've used 36 inches and you have 0 drop. How great is that, right? But a lot of times what we typically see is when we get that module and we open it, we unfold it, it's like 49.5 inches. And we just missed that 48-inch sheet. So now what do we have to do? We have to go to 60-inch wide. And although that drop is going to be recycled, there was an opportunity to have a cost savings for your owner there. So again, a great conversation to have with your panel manufacturer from the get-go, talking about your panel module sizes, how to be as efficient as possible with the material. All those things are great things to think about. And we do have a handy dandy chart here and also on our website under frequently asked questions that kind of just gives you a guide for how many panels with a flanged edge condition you're going to get out of a sheet. Now, you are going to see 72-inch wide on my chart. Why didn't I talk about it a minute ago? Well, it's kind of a unicorn. During the metal tariffs in 2017 and 2018, the metal market went bananas. Prices were up and down. Things were crazy. And we saw 72-inch wide become even more scarce than it already was. Then enter COVID, then enter supply chain shortage. So it is difficult to find really, really long lead times. But if you're thinking about that, do have that conversation up front before you get your heart set on it with your panel manufacturer. Talk to them about the lead times and talk to them about the availability. There also may be a more creative solution to give the illusion of a larger panel. So again, just great conversations to have. So folded panel production, what you're looking at here is a large panel folder. This is the latest and greatest in technology. It takes one less person. We purchased this back in 2019 before the advent of the labor shortage. So we were very thankful we had it during then. But you can see on the left-hand side underneath the words here, we've got some corner panels that were folded by this machine. There's a few of those at our shop. They're very efficient. We can also do radiusing by using what's called bumping, a bumping technique on that if we need to do radiuses if the column cover machine is busy. We also have a Euromax. So one of the ways that we can make our RS100 system, which is a tab slot system, is we can punch out those tabs and slots here on this machine. A trump machine is also another way to punch and outline material. This is just some examples of, rain screens and wet seal, primarily what we're talking about today. These are insulated panels. I know that that's another option for cladding. The insulated panels are sometimes rock wool filled or filled with some type of non-combustible material so that they're still NFPA 285 compliant. So there's just a lot of different options to consider when you're thinking about cladding. And these are a couple of the standard gauges, and I'm not sure why I put them in font that maybe my 12-year-old could read. That's super, super small. But I'll go ahead and read those to you. 040, we're going to have trim and flashing. 063 is going to be more of that quill coat type of gauge. 080, 090 is typically where we see wet seal and rain screen systems. That's that sweet spot living in there. We do see 0.125, and then, going into the thicker gauges, rather than having a flanged edge condition, we're going to have a sheared edge condition. Things to consider that may limit the factor of the gauges is going to be the size of panels and the wind loads. Scott, do you want to share any additional information here?
Yeah, those are the thicknesses. As we mentioned, the thinner the metal, the more chance of oil can and edge wave. 1/8 inch is the sweet spot. Any project we look at, we take a look at the size of the panel and the wind load, and whether you need the calcs or not, we do them internally to make sure that the panels are going to function accordingly and stay on the building.
Yep, for sure. And here's just a little bit about the alloys that you may be familiar with. The 3000 series is typically where most of our products are manufactured. That's going to be a little bit more malleable, more bendable. When we get into the 5000 series, you'll see, that's going to be harder. It's good for shearing, not necessarily good for bending. There's about a 50-50 chance it may crack or craze on you. So typically we say, if you're going to need to radius or bend something, stay within that 3000 series. You'll also notice in the 5000 series, there's a 5005 AQ, and that's anodized quality material. Tends to be a lot more expensive. One thing to consider if you're looking at, you want that anodized look, you may want to look at a PVDF finish that mimics that anodized look. Sometimes you can get a 5, 10, or 20-year warranty with that type of finish versus an anodized finish where maybe they only offer a warranty up to 5 years. So just things to ask questions about on the initial stages of design. And then of course in 6000, you're going to have more of the curtain wall, the really, really thick stuff. You're not going to form any of that for sure. So there's a couple of different attachment methods for design when you're thinking about designing panel systems. One of the ways that we see it is attaching to subguards outside the ice and water shield. And that's typically the way that fabricators and installers like to do it. It's almost like hanging a picture on a wall, except for in this instance, it's going to be a horizontal channel. And then that panel is going to be fastened to that. And that then is going to be attached to the subguards. Sometimes in high wind conditions, or if the engineering criteria requires it, they're going to want to do an installation where we have embedded Z's. So one of those two methods are going to be used. We do not lock a panel on all 4 sides because metal expands and contracts. So we want to be sure and allow for that. So typically we'll have slots on all 4 sides of our panel so that they can breathe, so to speak, or there will only be fastened 2 to 3 sides, allowing that thermal shift. We do not recommend attaching directly to board. We always recommend that you attach to some type of subgirt system. And then we're going to dive in a little bit to wet seal. Now, wet seal, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of the dinosaur, so to speak, the big OG of the cladding systems. It was the primary weather barrier on the building. So just imagine, I mean, you have got to be very, very exact when you're putting in that type of system. It is the thing that protects that entire building from the elements. So you're looking at two things. You're looking at welding on all four corners of each panel. And then once all those panels are installed, you're looking at sealant to be installed. And basically you're caulking around each and every panel. So, you know, it's labor intensive. It's going to be more expensive because it is labor intensive, but it is a great system. You will have some maintenance on these types of systems. The sealants will need to be replaced, I'd say every 30 to 50 years or so. But it's, you know, tried and true. It still is, we get requests for this on occasion, but primarily Rainscreens are what we see the majority of today. And these are just a couple of details of some of the wet seal systems we've done in the past. You can see there's some sealant by others there. And this is an example of a recent request that we had for a wet seal system. This was a kind of a retrofit renovation on a 5-building campus. It was kind of like a WeWork situation where it was a just, you know, office space where people could come in and rent it for an hour or 3 hours and the like. This is a wet seal system in Atlanta. Let me go back to that. This is the Proscenium building. And then you'll notice there's a custom exterior element on that right-hand photo of a spire there. This is the Hearst Tower. And as you can see, this is Art Deco. It's a little bit older project, but just another example of wet seal. And then some spandrel panels, bird beaks, and some 3D, a 3D artwork there in front of that entryway. A few more details. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. And Scott, stop me if you want to answer those, and I will be happy to pause. This is an example of a wet seal system. This is the National Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia, about 60 to 80,000 square feet, I believe, with some stainless on the interior. And here are the Rainscreens. All right, so the one thing I'm going to say about Rainscreens is be sure and ask your manufacturer for their testing data. Rainscreens is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and it's not really a true Rainscreen unless it has the testing data to back it up. So always ask for that. It needs to be a true pressure equalized system and has passed that 508 test. So one of the things I want you to understand about Rainscreens is that it is the secondary barrier on the building. So now, you know, we've moved forward in time. We've got a lot of great inventions, lots of new technology. So, you know, as I mentioned, the wet seal system was the primary system on the building. Now the ice and water shield does all that hard work, and Rainscreens are the secondary barrier. So AAMA says that about 5% of moisture can get back behind those Rainscreens as long as there's enough air to evaporate that moisture. And that is why testing is so critical. Definitely ask for that at the very beginning of your project to make sure that whatever it is that you're selecting is a true Rainscreen. One of the things I love about them also is that, go ahead.
Holly, we have a question. We have a caller from Poughkeepsie, New York, calling in and asking, what would be the primary reason to choose a wet seal system over a Rainscreen system? And, you know, really, I would think it's personal preference. I think people that have maybe been around a little longer, have had experience with wet seal, aren't afraid of wet seal, are comfortable using it. In cases where the panels start to get, let's say more horizontal roof-like, it's better to have a wet seal in there than the open joint Rainscreen. I mean, the Rainscreen's the new tried and true. You have a full weather barrier behind it works great. But again, as Holly mentioned earlier, the wet seal systems, they've been around for a long, long time, and as long as that rod and caulking is installed properly, you're going to have a seal that is your primary barrier to the air and water on the exterior to stop all that. So I think a little bit, because these days cost is not that huge of difference. There's a lot of labor involved with the sealant. Maybe a wet seal perhaps is a little less expensive, but not a whole lot.
Thanks very much, Scott. So the slide,
and,
go ahead.
I guess while I've interrupted you here, I've got another question about hurricane force winds and wind-borne debris with a Rainscreen system. Yeah, and you see some of these rain screens in 080, and that can be a little too thin. With our RS400 system, you'll see here in a little bit, it's a rain screen system that has passed the Miami-Dade hurricane testing, where they shoot the 2x4 out of a cannon and can't penetrate the panel. And one of the tests for the AAMA 508, regardless of the impact resistance, is a test where they crank up a airplane propeller and they shoot water at the panel and all of its joints at hurricane level winds, and they test how much water gets by that joint, that rain screen joint, and no more than a 5% mist can get beyond that joint onto the substrate, and then it has to dry rapidly with enough airflow. So that is part of the AAMA 508, the hurricane water testing.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, the picture you're looking at on the right-hand side is a test buck. Typically, the testing facility requires at least 4 of those. And of course, they'll try to destroy them as best they can. And when you get that approval, it's great. It's like winning a Grammy for a manufacturer. Here's a little example of, some of the tests that they run while they're in process. So this is a RS100 detail. You can see this is a tab slot system, has concealed fasteners. It is unique to us, but it's a very popular, economical system, goes up very quickly. And, the designer and architect has a lot of options in terms of color, doing it horizontally, vertically, standard, and a brick pattern. Just a good system. There it is. You can kind of see it in a brick stack or a standard, and then on the right-hand side coming out of the paint line. And it gives an opportunity just to have, a little pop of color with these column wraps. This is all RS100. Example of a school in Philadelphia here. And it also allows you to kind of do a 3D effect. So if you're going to be using more neutral colors, but you still want a little bit of a focal point, you can do that with this kind of system. And again, that wonderful use of color, using post-fabricated finished products, you can have 5 or 6 different reds on a building and create that interest using paint versus having all these different shaped panels. That's going to require setup. You're going to have a setup for one of this and one of this and one of this, and then that machine's going to run.
Hey, Scott, it looks like Holly might have frozen. and dropped out. Do you have the slides handy? Sorry about this, folks. We'll get things back on track in just a moment.
Yeah, she just texted me, and she's rebooting her computer. Something crashed.
All right, great. Well, just give her a moment then. Thank you everyone for your patience.
Yeah, but that is one of the beauties of the Rainscreen system, is that it eliminates any negative pressure that pulls moisture and air back into the building. If you have a wet seal and you get some holes in it over time, that negative pressure will pull moisture into your stud and back. Usually it's a bat type insulation behind it. So, but what the Rainscreen doesn't stop is the driving rain, as I mentioned, with the hurricane driven rains will hit that joint, but it creates a bit of a barrier there, and even with hurricane type level winds, only 5% mist can get beyond that panel. So that comes with any Rainscreen system that is tested in accordance with AAMA 508. Yeah, and we're currently bidding. I'm bidding a project today as we speak in New Orleans, where they're going with the RS400 system. So that system, which when Holly gets rebooted, you'll get a peek at. That is it's AAMA 508, so it's going to stop the hurricane-driven rain. But it's also, in this particular case, a .250. It's quarter-inch thick plate they're going to be using on that building.
Awesome. That's exciting. Just going to go ahead and share. You said it was the RS400 system, right?
Yeah, the RS400 system. I don't know if you're able to pull up any details of it there.
Yeah, so I'm just going to share. This is how you can get some more product information on Acelab. So here's the RS400 system from American Metalcraft. You can search for it using the bar up here. And you can download spec files right from this page, as well as reach out for some more information. You can also view a bunch of project photos to get an idea of how this looks in real life. And scrolling down, we have an overview of some product information, as well as information on design notes, performance data, certifications, as well as the 3-part spec file down here. So if you're interested in learning some more about this product, check it out on Acelab. You can also go ahead and save this to your Acelab account so that you can come back to it later. Nest it under a project. So I'm going to put it under my general research project. And while Holly's joining, I'll just show you some of the benefits in saving your product information in Acelab, which one is that it's easy to do. Looks like Holly's back on, so I'll just finish this up real quick. But the other thing is that it automatically will save it to like a comparison table. So if you go back to your project after you save a product, you can see I've saved 2 products here. And you're able to compare those products right on Acelab. So you can add in as many products as you want and create these really handy short lists where you can add comments, add documents, see an overview of product information, and compare finishes, style, performance data. So if you're interested in learning some more about Acelab, I know Armand sent his meeting link in the chat earlier. But yeah, just wanted to show you how you could use that to evaluate the RS400 system for your projects. All right, welcome back, Holly.
Thank you. I don't know what happened. That was pretty wild. My computer just decided to take a dive, and but like the Terminator, I'll be back, right? So here we are.
Glad
Okay.
you're enjoying.
Thank you.
All right.
Right,
Well,
let me
Scott
see
gave
if-
us some great information, and then we were just checking out some of your products on Acelab. So whenever you're ready, feel free to take over again.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your patience. Technology is great when it works, right?
Scott.
All right, here we are. So I believe I was kind of walking through RS100. I'll just show you a couple more examples of that. Let's see if I can go to slideshow here. Okay. It's just being a little bit slower. It's still trying to recover, I think. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, you know, the rain screens are a great way to add interest and color to your building, as well as a really nice economical cladding. It also can be utilized as an equipment screen. We've done that on a couple of different healthcare facilities, and it really looks beautiful. So rather than seeing those giant HVAC units on top of the roof, you've got this nice clean line hiding them. The 200 is going to have a spring reveal that you can change the color, again, because everything is post-fabrication finished. So if you want a white panel with a red reveal, a yellow panel with a purple reveal, whatever your options you're thinking about, that can be possible with this type of system. So the 300 is just, you know, it's a great rain screen. There's nothing super fancy about it. It'll get the job done. As a matter of fact, this is the design that we used on one of our largest projects to date. This was Fort Bliss Hospital in El Paso, Texas. 130,000 square feet of rain screen, fascia and soffit panels, as well as column wraps. Really turned out to be a beautiful project. I did see Galaxy Silver for 3 years on the paint line, though. I was about ready for some color, that's for sure. Let me see a few more pictures there. So as Scott mentioned earlier, we do have a Miami-Dade rated product. This is the RS400. So when you're thinking about a project that you may have that is going to be in the Miami-Dade area, Galveston, Texas also has really high winds. You may be thinking about using a lot of different types of Miami-Dade rated panels, and that's really going to achieve and meet those engineering criteria for those projects. It goes through 5 times more difficult testing than something that is more on the lower tier, like just a standard pressure equalized system. It can withstand high wind loads. You know, you also want to look for products that are going to have a Florida product approval number. That tells you they've been through the entire process. When it's Florida product building approved, you know, it can withstand quite a lot. But with a system like this, rather than that flanged edge condition that we were talking about earlier, you're going to have a sheared edge. Why? Well, we're going to have to use much thicker material because we're talking about this thing taking super high wind loads. The other reason that we're going to use a thicker gauge is because that assembled back that you see in this detail is going to be stud welded to the face of the panel. So we don't want to have read through. So you really get nice clean lines. You get a nice clean joint versus the flanged edge where that you have a little bit more of a fold look to it. Architects and designers seem to really love this look, especially for monumental type projects. We use this on the LG headquarters in Englewood, New Jersey, as well as the RS100. We use both of those on that particular project. You definitely want to also look at features such as this. One of the things we always try to do on our team is have conversations with architects and ask them about what challenges they're facing when it comes to solid plate aluminum. We also do, of course, other metals like zinc and stainless, but that's a big question we ask. And one of the things that we've heard in the past, of course, is pillowing, which we always say choosing the right gauge will eliminate that. You definitely have also told us that you don't like the dirt streak that will sometimes happen as projects age. So this particular system has a self-cleaning feature. It has a raised lip on the back side that prevents dirt streaking down the face of the panel. So that's a great way to eliminate that challenge if that's something that you're concerned about.
Yeah, your computer crashed. I mentioned to the group that I'm bidding a project today at Xavier University in New Orleans with the RS400 system. And if you go back to that detail, the vertical detail, in this case, that front skin is being beefed up to 0.250 quarter inch, and we are attaching to a thermally broke subgirt. There are people, several folks out there, Nightwall's one of them, that have a thermally broke subgirt. We just got a question about that. And yes, in many cases, we do attach to other than just solid aluminum subgirts.
For sure. Yeah, so this is an example of that RS400 system. You can see just a really nice crisp edge in that close-up of that system. Be more there. And then you can see that in production. This is sitting on the paint alley in our facility waiting for paint. So we're going to flip to coatings. When thinking about metal coatings, what are some of the things that you think may be considerations for that? And there's a couple. Location of project, you definitely may have had those types of conversations. Is it going to be on the coast? Is it going to be in the Midwest where you're going to have a lot of high temperatures, high heat? All things to think about when you're choosing a color. Also thinking about, is it going to be a 2-coat, 3-coat, or 4-coat system? Is the pre-treat going to be chrome? Is it going to be zirconium? What's the availability of the warranty? Can I get a 20-year warranty on the coast? Can I get a 20-year warranty on an exotic red? All great questions to have with your panel manufacturer or your extrusion coating applicator. If I'm going to do small runs of color, what paint manufacturer has a 5-gallon minimum? So let's just kind of go through a couple of those points. Just to be timely, I'm not going to hit really into the weeds, but I'm going to give you just some good information that you can take with you and kind of think about as you're looking at coating options. So 2-coat, 3-coat, or 4-coat, that's really going to, again, depend on the location of the project. There have been instances where we've looked at specs where a 3-coat was specified, but a 2-coat really would have done the job. So in that case, we do recommend switching that from a 3-coat to 2-coat, and it'll help you a little bit on budget as well. Conversely, we see some that have 2-coat that are on the coast that really need a 4-coat because of that harsh salt environment. The availability of the warranty. The big three, PPG, AXO, and Sherwin-Williams, you know, they the warranties that your extrusion coating applicator or your panel manufacturer will offer, those are only going to be an extension of what the paint manufacturers offer as well. So one thing to consider, if you love the really bright, vivid blues, reds, and yellows, but you want a warranty, that may not be available. And it won't be available if those colors are exotic colors. And that's not from your coater. That's from the paint manufacturers. And the reason is because the paint manufacturers have to add a lot of different minerals to that paint in order to create that super vivid color. So if that's really what you love, that's what you want on your project, but you do need a 5, 10, or 20-year warranty, have that conversation with your panel manufacturer. They're going to be able to kind of steer you in the direction of colors that are similar to that, but will carry that warranty requirement that you need. As far as pre-treat, chrome used to be the standard. And if you are familiar with Aaron Brockovich, you know that chrome is bad. Chrome is bad for the environment, bad for people, bad for animals, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a new pre-treat that came out about 15 years ago called zirconium. And zirconium is a wonderful pre-treat. It's approved by all of the PVDF paint manufacturers, and it's cleaner. So it doesn't have that solid waste that chrome does. The water can be recycled. It's a much more sustainable type chemical than something that is really, really toxic like chrome. So definitely if sustainability is something on your mind, talk to your panel manufacturer, extrusion coater about whether or not they have chrome in their facility or if they're using something a little bit more green for a pre-treat. PVDF. Now, you can see the word ahead of you. I am not going to say it because these lips, especially when I'm doing a class like this and I have a little bit of butterflies, I will stumble all over that. But that's what PVDF stands for. It is used in electric car batteries. So during the supply chain shortage, there was a time when all of the paint manufacturers and the coaters were on allotments. That time has passed, thankfully, and we have plenty of supply now. But it is a wonderful product because it is extremely strong, extremely tough, and it's used in medical equipment as well as specialty fishing wire. So it's across a lot of different industries. An alternative to PVDF, if we ever have another shortage, if there's a coating that you would just want to look at as maybe a little bit more glossy, you want a little bit more vivid color, FEVE, another long word I'm not going to say, is a great option as well. Now, to be fair, it's about 30% more. So look at your budget, look at what your needs are, and have that conversation. We kind of already talked about colors and profile. Just a quick fun fact, the difference between a horizontal and vertical line. Typically, vertical lines are going to be painting extrusions. So their max height's going to be 24 feet in length, and they're typically automatic because they're painting the same profile all the time. A horizontal line is going to be painting a variety of shapes. So all those products we mentioned at the front of the class, brake metal, column covers, panels, flat sheet, ornamental metal, perforated panels, all of those are going to be run through a horizontal paint line. And typically that's going to have a larger capability window, painting parts sometimes up to 38 feet in length. Of course, the paint, the parts have to be racked in a certain way. At our facility, we have 27-foot load bars. So we're looking at how many parts we're going to be able to get on that load bar. If it's going to be 100% coated, if it's something that's going to have, it's going to be part of a roofing system and it's just going to be the front part coated, all those things to consider when loading the line. And pre-treat is kind of like a car wash. It cleans off all the impurities of the metal, and it does, it's a process called etching, but it's not what you think of when you think about the word typically etching. It coats the metal, but it creates a surface for the paint to adhere to. And then when that paint and that product go through the curing process, that paint kind of melds into the metal. And that's one of the reasons that PVDF is the standard, especially when it comes to exterior products on buildings. There's the pre-bake and the paint application, which you're looking at here. And then, of course, at the end of the line, there's going to be extensive quality testing, making sure that that paint adhesion is correct, making sure that the mill thickness is exact. We have a tool called a spectrometer that measures the mill thickness on each part. What you're seeing here is lab panels, and those lab panels live with us forever. You can see we do crosshatch tests, pencil hardness tests, mortar tests, acid tests, thermal tests, and the like. And so that is just a broad brush education in wet seal and Rainscreen. I hope you enjoyed all the information today. Would love to take any additional questions at this time. I'll also tell you our contact information. I know Bo shared that with you up front, but Holly at AmericanMetalcraft.com and Scott at AmericanMetalcraft.com. We both would love to help with any questions you may have or any information you may require. Scott, I'll let you take it away with anybody that's got questions.
Okay, well, Holly, I think this is one for you. Can you provide by email the Rainscreen website link to the details for future reference? And I guess that would be through Acelab or going to our website.
Yeah, actually, I can share my screen really quick and I'll show you where to go.
And yes, we do have details in Revit.
Yes. You get out of this presentation mode. All right, and then I will do a view share. And that's not working. Let's see. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll pull up our website first and then share that. Here we go. So if you go to our website and you click on the menu bar on the right-hand side, you'll see details and specs. And there's a sub bar that lists those different products. And when you go to that, you will be taken to a page with all of our details. And it's kind of cool. It's a 3D rendering that you can roll over that and then see the details. Here we go. I'm going to share this with you now. Here they are. So as you hover over each of those, you'll be able to see all those different details. And if you scroll down, we have an installation video, so you can take a look at that as well, see how that system connects and goes together. And then below that, you're going to see the RS400 system. And so just roll over that and you'll be able to download 3D Revit details. As we also have them in AutoCAD. And if you want to download the whole package, you've got all that right here. So you can just get everything at once right there in the red bar.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'll be sending out, some additional information to everyone that attended today with some helpful links. So you'll be able to find your way around the website, and feel free to reach out and ask any additional questions and request any additional information for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly and Scott, for a wonderful presentation. And thank you to all of our attendees for joining today. I know we're at time, so we'll go ahead and end the webinar shortly. But yeah, hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and stay tuned for some emails from American Metalcraft with some additional information. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.